Cool. Well, thanks guys for having us. It's good to be back again, and it was fun to see Zach at BPCon. It was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just so for those of you who don't know us, my name's Amanda and this is Matt, of course. That's how we identify ourselves. But our company is called Keystone CPA, and we specialize in working with real estate investors nationwide. The clientele ranges anywhere from, a busy professional investing in turnkey rentals on the side, all the way to people who just do real estate development and syndication. So kind of the whole gamut of things. Just like many of you, we are also real estate investors ourselves. So what I always say is we're CPAs by day, real estate investors by night. So always really excited to be here to chat with Zach and Adam. I'm sure we'll learn something too about different real estate options. But like Zach said, the presidential election has just ended, and right now the outlook looks pretty good for real estate investors. We're going to touch a little bit on some of the depreciation stuff in a moment, but one of the main things that that we look at from a planning perspective is how can we maximize the tax benefits of being a real estate investor. And
Can you
one
guys
thing
see
really
my
important.
screen? Sorry, Amanda.
Yep,
Are we
okay.
good? I just want to make
Yeah,
sure we're good.
we're
All right.
good.
So I'm driving the
That's
ship.
perfect.
Just let me know when you want the next
Yes.
slide.
All right. Let's go to write-offs because it's enough of looking at our faces.
Yeah. Yeah, I think any good from our perspective, any good tax planning starts with kind of understanding. Basically, the pillar of tax planning is the foundation is just to make sure you are maximizing your tax write-offs. I think as one important tip for everyone, as a real estate investor, you are a business owner in the eyes of the IRS. That's something you should not forget. So when you always hear people talking about, well, business owners get to write off this, this, and this, well, you are a business owner now, so you should be thinking like one as well. And so you want to make sure you are capturing and deducting everything you're legally entitled to do. So real estate investors, we're really good about capturing those deductions that are tied to the properties, right? Mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance. But I think it's a lot of the overhead stuff that a lot of investors forget. Those costs that are not specific to the property, but you're still incurring them to run your business, right? So you got professional development, you got dues, you're going to conferences, you've got business travel, business meals. A lot of investors obviously work from a home office. That's another deduction that we see, believe it or not, see overlooked or not maximized. Car expenses is another big one. People are just not tracking it, not taking advantage of everything.
Yeah. And I guess if you're like Adam, you have a lot of kids, you can also incorporate your kids into your business. I don't mean like incorporate, I just mean like having their kids help you out in your real estate. Because when you pay your kids, just like when you pay anyone else, as long as they're helping out in your real estate business, then you could potentially take a tax deduction for it. So a great way to look at it is when I just give money to my kids, allowances, I don't get to write it off. It's a personal expense. But if they are working for me to earn that income, now it becomes a business expense to me. And oftentimes it's non-taxable to the kids on the first roughly $13,000 of income. So a really great thing to look at, especially before the end of the year. We often have people say, hey, I would love to pay my kids and take a deduction for last year, but it's too late for last year, but we can still do it for this year. So something important to look at before the end of the year. Besides write-offs, of course, we can't talk about real estate unless we talk also about depreciation. So that's just our ability to take a paper write-off on the purchase price of a building. And there are a lot of creative ways that we can maximize or supercharge that write-off to get a large upfront deduction in the first year. So when you hear investors say, oh, I bought a single family and I wrote off $100,000 or $200,000 on my taxes, oftentimes what they're talking about is accelerated depreciation. Something that I mentioned, right now, in addition to just accelerating depreciation, we're able to write off up to 60% in bonus depreciation. One of the things that we were hoping to come back to 100% bonus depreciation, that bill sort of got rejected partway through 2024. But now with the new administration, and we'll see if the Republicans control Senate as well as the House. If so, then odds of 100% bonus depreciation coming back sooner rather than later is something that is looking, more and more likely to occur.
So I think from a big picture, a great way to look at it is one thing to remember is that when we're talking about maximizing write-offs, we're not necessarily talking about going out and spending money just for the sake of spending money to get a tax write-off. That doesn't make sense, right? But looking at things that you're already spending money on. How do we take a deduction? How do we turn personal expenses into legitimate business deductions, income shifting, maximizing a write-off? And then with depreciation, we're looking for ways to optimize and maximize it, right? In a perfect world, we're buying properties that are cash flow positive, but then by maximizing our deductions, maximizing depreciation, we're at the very least bringing that number down to zero. So we're not got cash in our pocket, but not have to pay taxes. And then in some cases, we've got enough depreciation, enough write-offs that we can create a loss on paper. And then the just question is, how can we use that loss against on our tax return?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's
Amanda-
go to our next slide.
Yeah, and Amanda and Matt, before you do, we had a question that popped up about paying your kids. And can you talk a little bit about kind of getting your kids on your payroll and how you can show that you paid your kids? Like, what kind of proof do you have that you're, for example, this summer, I'm probably going to utilize my 12-year-old to do some work for me and on my business. What do I have to do to get that done?
And just real quick before for everyone joining in, we have over 220 people on here, so it's a large group. We've turned video and audio off and the chat box is off. We'll be able to post some of these questions and answers in the chat. The Q&A is open. All right. So that's where you need to post your questions. And I see a lot of people raising their hands. I appreciate that, but we just don't have the ability to call on you. If you have questions, put your questions in the Q&A and we will do our best to work through those throughout the presentations. We may not be able to stop and hit everything because we want to move this at an efficient pace, but we'll do our best to answer those questions as we go. But also after, we'll come back to them after the presentation because we have a lot to get through tonight, you guys. And a lot of this is really concrete stuff that is still very applicable this year. So put your questions in the Q&A and let's hear, Amanda and Matt, how every single person potentially, even without real estate professional or accelerated depreciation, could possibly take a $25,000 rental loss.
Well, I mean, for, one of the things to understand is the tax law currently allows, if you are someone whose income is $100,000 or less, even if you work full time, even if your real estate is just a side hustle for you, you can potentially use up to $25,000 of tax losses against W-2 and other income. That includes retirement income, stock gains, basically all types of income. And that's what I love about, and this is something that not a lot of people talk about. It's basically part of the passive activity loss rules.
Yeah, I mean, but if you think about it, we've had client situations like this, right, where they bought their first property and by maximizing the depreciation, like we talked about, they were able to create a loss on paper and deduct $25,000 against $100,000, right? So for someone like that, all of a sudden now you wiped out 25% of their taxable income. That's a huge shift for them, right? I mean, that's, it's not as many zeros as Elon Musk has, right? But for somebody in that situation, that's going to be a big game changer moving forward as they continue to build their portfolio.
Yeah.
Can you give us a number, like numeric example on that too? Just like a property example and how someone creates that loss?
No, I mean, I think I'm trying to think back to that client situation I was talking about. I think they ended up buying a property for probably around $300,000 to $400,000. And, they did a cost segregation study. They, were able to and where they bought was not as much land, right? And so they did a cost seg, and I think they were able to generate, I don't remember the exact depreciation number, but it basically created a net loss of about $25,000 on their return. So,
yeah, it's something I really want to bring up because I think a lot of people are always concerned, like, why do we have these losses? So it's really important just to reemphasize, the concept or the goal is we have a property that's cash flow positive, but we are just creating paper losses through write-offs, our home office, our car, paying our kids, and depreciation. So it's actually profitable, but we're just creating these types of tax losses. And I know for you guys, a lot of some of your properties, you actually provide a kind of an estimate, right, on what is the potential benefit when you buy a specific property. And that's really helpful for investors because oftentimes when you buy from a seller or other turnkey providers, you kind of don't know that. So you're sort of guessing, like, what do I think I'm going to get from this property versus another property? So that's definitely something really, really good to have in your tool belt. Now, like we were saying, this $25,000 loss is available for everyone if your income is under $100,000, okay? But if your income is between $100,000 and $150,000, you still get some of this $25,000 loss. It just starts to get diminished a little bit. And when your income then is $150,000 or more, then you can no longer use this $25,000 loss against W-2 income. However, there's a loophole to the original rule, and that is with real estate professional status. If you're a real estate investor, you've probably heard of the term real estate professional status. You want to know, what does that mean? Why do we care? Well, we care because if you are a real estate professional, or if your spouse is a real estate professional, then regardless of how much income you make from your job or your other business, you can always use rental losses to offset taxes from your W-2 and other business income. So the question we get a lot is, okay, what is a real estate professional? Does it mean I'm licensed? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so there's really three rules for you, or again, your spouse qualifying as a real estate professional. First one is you need to spend at least 750 hours during the year on the right types of real estate activities. Second one is you need to spend more real estate time than you do in any other job you have. So this is a hurdle for people who are working full time, because if you're working 2,000 hours a year in your full time job, it's going to be tough to get 2,001 hours on real estate. But if you have a part time job, maybe you work 1,000 hours, depending on your portfolio, doable to get 1,001 hours, right? So 750 hours, more time in real estate than your other job. And then the third one is you have to meet one of the material participation requirements with respect to your properties, which layman's terms just kind of means that you are really involved in the day-to-day operations of your own long-term rentals. You're self-managing, you're kind of doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff.
And there's different things you can do from a planning perspective to try to earn those hours. But what I love about this is this works really well for a lot of our clients who are high income earners that have a stay-at-home spouse, or a spouse who's only working part-time. It's sort of what we call like the marriage loophole, because if
we're here for marriage advice.
A marriage loophole. So if you are someone who's a high income earner working full-time, but you have a spouse who stay at home, if your spouse qualifies as real estate professional, then the losses offsets both of your income for tax purposes. And when you hear a doctor talk about, oh, I made $700,000 and then I paid very little taxes, odds are they're using these strategies we talked about, maximizing write-offs, accelerate depreciation, and likely their spouse is claiming real estate professional status. Okay. Now, the reality of it is not everyone could be a real estate professional. Not everyone is able to marry a real estate professional, although we're trying to come up with a new company called realestatematch.com.
rematch.com.
Yeah, it's
already been trademarked. Don't try it, Adam.
Yeah, I see you guys laughing. It's already been taken. To match up high income earners with people who love real estate, right? But the reality again is not everybody is married to a real estate professional. And also we just have people who are single and they love their career. They're not about to quit to do real estate full time. And that's where the short-term rental tax loophole comes in. Why do we call it a loophole? Well, because unlike real estate professional status, if you invest in short-term rentals like Airbnbs, Verbos, if you can use real estate losses against W-2 and other income, as long as you meet what we call material participation hours. And in that scenario, we don't care how many hours you're working at your job. You don't have to have more hours in real estate. You just have to meet one of these 3 hours requirements.
Yeah, so that's why we love this, right? So the strategy is very similar. So those investing in long-term rentals, you're looking at utilizing real estate professional, creating losses on paper through the depreciation like we talked about. The short-term rental loophole, the strategy is very similar. So if we can create a loss on paper, then we want to be able to use that loss to offset W-2 income. Why we love this is the bar, the threshold to be able to do that is a lot lower with the short-term rental loophole than it is for real estate professional. So as Amanda mentioned, you just have to materially participate in your short-term rentals. So there's 7 different ways you can do it, technically speaking, but 3 of them apply to 99% of the people out there. So first one is you just spend at least 500 hours a year self-managing your short-term rental or short-term rental properties. Doesn't matter how many hours you worked anywhere else. Doesn't matter how many hours anyone else did. If you got to 500 hours, you're good to go. If you can't get to 500 hours for some reason, then we go down to the next test. You just spend at least 100 hours a year self-managing your short-term rentals, and no other single person, no other single business spent more time than you did. So you have 120 hours. You look around and you're, I don't know, maybe you had a general contractor did some remodel and he spent 105 hours. That was the most from somebody else. Then you're good to go. And then if you can't meet one of those 2 tests for some reason, then it's just the third test is kind of a catch-all. It's add up all of your time. As long as it's more than all the time of everyone else who worked on your short-term rentals, that you've met this requirement as well.
Yeah, so this works really well for virtually everyone. You know, you could be someone who does real estate full time and easily meet those hours, or you could be someone who is working a very heavy W-2 job, or working or building a business outside of real estate, right? So that's what I love about short-term rental Loophole, is that it virtually works in all scenarios. We have a lot of clients who are in entertainment, or athletes who also use this type of strategy. And I know, Zach and Adam, you guys actually have ways where you help the investor structure the deal so that they can be more hands-on initially to be able to meet these requirements, right?
Yeah, let me try to just summarize this real quick, and stay tuned, you guys, because we're going to talk about how you can buy new construction properties in A-class areas where you can and possibly buy them with no money down, potentially, if you're using some of these incentives and creative loan structures we're going to talk about, where you can create massive tax losses, where you can buy a brand new construction short-term or brand new construction house that you can self-manage as a short-term rental, so you can still take accelerated depreciation against your W-2 income and save tens of thousands of dollars in taxes this year. You could, all the things we're talking about, you can still accomplish in 2024. The clock is ticking, but if you take action now, you can still apply these to your 2024 taxes, because you have to buy properties in 2024. You don't have to do these accelerated depreciation cost seg studies until next year prior to filing taxes, but you have to own and operate the property this year. So we'll talk about how you can apply this, even if this is your first property, even if you're not a real estate professional. But Amanda and Matt, let me just review this, some of these things for people that maybe are joining later, just to summarize for people. So the first thing you talked about is a $25,000 tax deduction, or up to a $25,000 tax deduction that people can take passive losses or whatever from their real estate against their active income. Now, if you're a person earning $100,000 or less, you get that full $25,000. Is that accurate? And that gets phased out as you still can, if you're $150,000. Now, is that single or married, or does it matter?
It's both actually. So they don't change the number whether you're single or married, believe it or not. So
Don't mention that on
Marriage penalty.
marriage penalty.
Yeah, don't mention that on your realestatematchmaker.com. But
Yeah, okay.
so
That's not on.
right. So $25,000, guys, you buy a property, and I will go through these numbers. When I go through and present actual data, like with properties, it's going to be really like deep in the math. So make sure to keep your pen and paper for that. We'll go through some actual examples. But if you bought a $200,000 property, most of my cost seg studies come in between 30 to 36%. I've had some as high as 44%. But on a $200,000 property, rough math, 30% of that, $60,000. As that's 100% bonus depreciation, and you take whatever 60% of that, because we're 60% this year. I will go through this math in slower detail soon, but that's over that $25,000 loss. So my point is that if you earn $150,000 or less, married or single, you can take a portion of that, or potentially all of that, just buying one property and doing a cost segregation study without being a real estate professional. Now, if you really want to take this to the next level with doing accelerated depreciation, which is what I do on every single property that I buy, you can save a significant amount of taxes. You or your spouse, someone has to qualify as a real estate professional, which Matt and Amanda went through, or you can exceed those $25,000 losses against your active income, your other investments, your W-2 job, if you are operating them this year as a short-term rental. It doesn't matter about the future years. It's about this year that you're putting it into service. And then next year, you can turn it over to management, or you can turn it over to, operate as a long-term rental. Next year doesn't matter. It's about the year that you put into service. So did I do a good job just quickly summarizing those things?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the benefit is, what I always tell clients is, you are the property owner. So it's completely up to you how much or how little you do with respect to each property. So I want to have more hours in it this year. If my goal is to save on taxes this year, I'm going to earn those hours, and I can't. There's not a rule that says you'll always and forever have to manage your own properties, right? And I like that, Zach, you brought up the timing of things, because again, right now under current law, this year we have 60% bonus depreciation. So as long as I buy my property, put it into service this year, I get 60% bonus, regardless of whether I do cost segregation now or I do it next year, or even if I decide I wanted to wait 3 years before I do it. Right?
So that's why it makes more sense to buy that property this year and close out this year, because whether you're doing cost seg this year or 10 years from now, it goes back to the year that you bought it. Next year, it's 40%. And I'll talk a little bit about this, but I think we're all optimistic that the reality is we're going back to 100% bonus depreciation.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
So
let's
I
hope
think
so, right?
I think I can
And
confidently
I think worth
that.
mentioning for people listening too, in case they don't know, is the way the IRS defines a short-term rental. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're putting on Airbnb or Vrbo. It's the IRS looks at it as the average customer stay during the year 7 days or less. If so, you've got a short-term rental. If it's 8 or more, likely you've got a long-term rental for tax purposes. So that's where that distinguishment is important. And so thinking of year end, you buy it now, you put it in service in December. You've got 4 people that stay there. The average stay is 4.5 days. You've got a short-term rental, right? And that's where the benefits can start kicking in.
That's a very good point, Matt. Just one last point, and then we'll move on to most common mistakes. Is that the qualification for the short-term rental? The third point that you mentioned, or the third qualification, which is really the one that is a catch-all and matters. I don't even know why they have the first two, but the third one is essentially if you're the only person actively managing it and no one else has hours dedicated to that, or rehabbing, managing, whatever, just working on that property, then you automatically qualify for that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it could be, yeah, you, as long as you're doing more time than everyone else, that qualifies. It's really interesting. I was talking to a client of mine who said, the short-term rental loophole could be defined as getting $100,000 tax write-off in 100 hours, right? So if you have 100 hours in the
That's a
property,
good put it.
and with more time than you do a cost like you're saying, and one or two of these rentals, you could have $100,000 write-off. Because we're talking about depreciation on the building, but for short-term rentals, how about all the furnishing, right? Furnishing and all the kayaks and all the fun stuff you put in, those are also eligible for depreciation too. But so I think the fact that real estate provides tax benefits it's not a surprise, right? This is not new to anyone here tonight. We all know that. We all know real estate comes with tax benefits. But even then, over 40% of tax returns we review are not optimized for tax savings. And what we found over the years is that the most common tax mistake that investors are making is actually just not doing planning, right? So we understand that there's these benefits, there's cost seg, there's loopholes and great, but when it comes to actually doing it, I think fewer people know what to do, right? How do I actually do this stuff? How do I earn the hours? What are these hours? Where should I buy, right? How should I list my properties? And so it's really important between now and the end of the year to work with the team, find the right properties, like Zach said, place it into service, right? We focus on those things. We got to buy, we got to put in service. We don't care about when we're going to do a cost segregation because that could be done later, right? We don't really care as much about illegal entities. We can do that later. And so just knowing what are the things that must be done. Planning is not anything super scary. It doesn't mean you have to become a CPA and learn all the laws. Planning is as simple as calling your tax person and setting up a meeting on Zoom or in person and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking of doing. What advice do you have for me? And then they'll be able to talk to you about, is it better for you to do a long-term rental or short-term rental, right? Which market? Is it close enough to you where you can do stuff, or what are some of the things we can put in place? Because we go to the last slide, I want to end with time is running out. It is already November 7th. I know Zach was saying we can still do it for the end of the year. So we want to make sure, again, if your goal is to build wealth this year, starting this year and save on taxes, we want to make sure we do it before December 31st because that really is a key date. We kind of use sports as an analogy for this.
Yeah, so Amanda likes to try and tell me that in sporting events, you don't actually have to watch the game because the only thing that matters is what the score is when the clock hits zero. I obviously argue with her against that, but there's some truth to it. And same thing with taxes, right? What your numbers are at on December 31st is going to dictate for a large part what your tax situation is going to be. There's a few things you can do after the fact, yes, but there's a lot more things you can do now before year end than waiting until calling your CPA on April 10th when they're working 12 hours a day and sleeping 4 hours a day and asking tax planning questions.
You guys are able to sleep 4 hours during tax time? I mean, that was
getting
awesome.
a lot of questions that one of them keeps popping up, if y'all wouldn't mind, and that is about the short-term rental loophole. If someone does a cost seg on their short-term rental and they have long terms, you can only do the cost seg on the short-term rental, right? You can't combine it with the long terms just because you're doing the short term.
Let me let's rephrase the question. So you can cost seg any property anytime you want. The question becomes, should you do a cost segregation on the long-term rentals? So the answer is yes. If I have a short-term rental, I'm using the short-term rental loophole. That means my short-term rental tax loss can offset all types of income. That's why I want to cost seg my short-term rentals. Now, should I cost seg my long-term rentals? Well, it depends, right? Am I able to use that loss because I'm also a real estate professional, or do I have other passive income I'm trying to offset? So no, you can always cost seg any property anytime. The question just becomes, do I want to do that for my long-term rentals also? Because that is separate than short-term rental loophole.
Yeah. They're just asking if you're running a short-term rental, yourself and doing all of that, you can't then, and you're able to cost seg that and put it against because you qualify. You can't then do cost segs on your long-term and use that to offset your active income as well, right?
It doesn't
Just the one.
automatically convert your long-term rental losses from being passive to active losses.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you have to be a real estate professional.
But here's my argument on that. It depends if those hours count towards your real estate professional status, right? If you're running, a lot of people that are investing in long-term rentals also are investing in short-term rentals, just like
Yeah, sure. If you've got 500 hours doing long-term rentals, you've got 500 hours doing short-term rentals, you're over 750. So then it's just a matter of, do you meet the other test for real estate professional?
Are you and your spouse both, if you're single, are you and your spouse both W-2 full-time employed? The majority of your income comes from those, and you're investing on the side, and you cannot qualify for real estate professional. Probably unlikely that you can use your long-term rentals this year towards accelerated depreciation. You can still use your short-term. However, as Amanda and Matt said, if your spouse is not full-time employed or not employed, stay at home, and they can qualify as real estate professional running the activities, all real estate's up for game there, right? For your accelerated depreciation. Let me say this, guys, in the chat box, we put a link if you want to connect with Amanda and Matt to be a proactive investor and participate on some of the tax planning strategies, which is really the important piece. The link is in the chat box for you to schedule with their team. So that's how you get in contact with them. They're not going to be able to stay with us the entire hour, so get your tax questions in now because they'll have to get out to get the kids. But Adam, let's do a couple other common questions that we got, and then I'll go into our portion.
Well, a common question we've gotten a couple of times is if you're buying a property this year when it's 60% and you're able to utilize that 60% at a later time, if they sign the bill up to 100% and you've already used that 60%, will it go retroactive and now you can use that extra 40%? Or how does that likely to work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to clarify, when we talk about 60% bonus, it just means we're able to take 60% of the depreciation up front. We don't lose out on the 40%. The remaining 40% we're still taking over time, right? So we never have lost it. We just didn't get to accelerate that part. We'll still use it. Now, what's going to happen if they bring back 100%? That's an unknown, right? Depends on how they bring it back. They could bring it back retroactive to January 1st, 2024, in which case, just by placing something in service, we could get 100% bonus depreciation. Or they could bring it back in 2026 and say it's only effective going forward in 26 and 27. So those are all of the unknowns. But, historically, what we typically say is the earlier the better, because, the last time they tried to bring back bonus depreciation earlier this year, it was intended to be retroactive, even to 2023. Of course, at this point, it's not going to be 23 because those returns are long gone. But I wouldn't be surprised if they bring it back January, effective January 2024.
I think what is likely to happen is that they will allow you to take those additional losses still in the future that you did not completely maximize. It would not make sense for people to go back and do a lot of amended returns, more than likely, but probably if you took 60% this year, you probably still have the carry forward that you could take up to the 100% in the year that you're filing that, right? So like I'm on the property side is 60% this year. I'll probably have an additional 40% next year that I could additionally take if they do that. That's just my speculation, but I actually did speak with our cost segregation specialist, engineer, as well as our tax attorney that we consult with prior to this webinar. So I have some insight on that. That's the most likely scenario. Alan, let's get another question in there.
Yeah. Another question we've been getting is, if people are going under contract now and closing a little bit later, how much do they have to rent the place? I mean, I know you said 7 days or less, but if you put it into service and you can only get one person, or you get, no bites on your property, how do you work that? Is it still applicable if you're the one doing all the marketing and all of the work on it?
Yeah. Yeah. I said, what we tell clients is, with a short-term rental, so you have to be able to show that the average stay was 7 days or less. Now, that's the question, right? Is if let's say you advertise it, but you get no takes, right? Or nobody books it. What's the average customer stay? Is it 0? Is it not applicable? That's the unknown. There hasn't been any court cases about it. So what we tell people is just to be on the safe side. Generally, you want to aim for at least two customer stays so that you can get a quote unquote average, and that the average is less than 7 days. So that could be, somebody doing 3 days, somebody doing 2 days, and that should be sufficient.
I was just
Pay,
add that
pay
is
your
for
friends to
short-term
stay there a
rentals.
couple nights. Is that what you're saying?
That's the rule for short-term.
No, have your
rentals.
friends pay you.
Like, why would you pay your rent? So that's the short-term rentals.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
You typically want 1, preferably 2 guests checking it out. Long-term rentals, you don't have to have any tenants. For long-term rentals, it's advertised and available. So that could literally mean I've listed it on for rent, and I'm saying you can move in the month of December, right? Advertised and also available for someone to move in before year end. You don't actually have to have a tenant
Right,
physically
right.
moved in.
Okay.
Adam, let's do one more that you feel is, and guys, I will do my best, even though I'm not a CPA. Amanda and Matt are. We consult with them all the time, and you are welcome to via the link in the chat box. But I will do my best to answer some of these specific questions after they leave. Let's get one more question in, Adam, and then I'm going to go through some of our numbers to actually show you how you can apply everything that we just talked about on specific properties, as well as matching this with creative finance, so you can save, hundreds of thousands of dollars without any money out of your pocket buying A-class new construction properties.
Yeah. So one thing I've seen come up a couple times is, do you have to own these properties in your personal name, or if you're able to utilize it, if they're in an LLC, does that ruin anything having them in an LLC?
Yeah, I love that question because that's actually one we get probably all the time too. But the best part here is just, I think a great takeaway for people is that you can utilize these strategies whether you own the properties in your personal name or you own them in an LLC that you are the owner of, or you and your spouse are the owner of. So the LLC is not needed for tax purposes, is another way to put it, right? Now it's good for asset protection for sure, and you want to think about that and have that conversation with your attorney and stuff. But for purely from a tax perspective, you can have them in your personal name, you can own them in your personal, transfer them in LLC. Nothing changes from a tax perspective.
Okay. And the last one I want to throw out here is, a lot of people have also asked, how does this impact whenever you sell and do a 1031 exchange or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the real estate is one of those that another tax benefit of real estate is we can defer taxes on the sale of a property. So if I'm buying a property long-term or short-term rental, I'm using these strategies to write off 25,000 or real estate professional short-term rental loophole. In a couple of years when I sell the property, if I do my planning properly, I can always 1031 exchange, right? So I'm selling one rental, exchanging into another or 2 or 3. And when you do that and you follow all the rules, then you don't have to recapture any of the tax benefits yet. You can continue to kick the can down the road. And the ultimate goal for a lot of our investor clients is just die with the real estate in your name or the
Just
name
die.
in your LLC or your trust. And because when you do that, you pass away with the asset, then the asset goes to the next generation with what we call step-up basis. So over your lifetime, nobody's paid the tax. You got all the tax benefit and nobody pays the tax. Eventually, when the kids sell it, all of the appreciation in your lifetime is tax-free to your kids or beneficiaries.
I think someone told me the term one time, swap till you drop. And
Until you drop, yeah.
that's how you create generational wealth, people. I'm going to throw one more, Amanda and Matt, because it's a common one we get all the time, and it's dramatically impactful for people, because we assume we're going back to 100% depreciation. We haven't officially done that yet. So, but someone bought a property in the past, can they still run a cost segregation on a property they bought in the past? And how does that work? They bought it in, say, 2022, when we're still at 100% bonus depreciation. They were not a real estate professional at that time, but they likely have been working towards that. They can qualify for that this year. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the benefit, like we were saying, right? If that person bought and placed a property in service in 2022, now years later, they're a real estate professional or they're using the short-term rental loophole for the first time, they could do a cost segregation on that property. Not only do you get to use that 100% to accelerate from the future, we can also do what's called an accounting method change, where we catch up for all of that depreciation that should have been taken on an accelerated manner from 2022 to today. 2020, so back in November 2022, we had a frenzy of clients. I'm sure you guys too, Zach and Adam, who were just trying to buy as many real estate properties as they could because they wanted to lock in that 100% bonus depreciation. And I think years later, when, I mean, bonus depreciation is not promised to us. I don't think we will like always and forever have it.
Zach promised it to us.
I know Zach just promised it, but I'm saying at some point, right, that might go away. And one day we're going to look back and say, do you remember in November 2024 when we had all these people buying real estate so they can lock in the bonus depreciation? Right.
Yeah,
Do these short-term rentals have to be in the U.S.? That came up once or twice in there, or is
No,
that
you
the
don't. I
US
mean, the tax benefits are available for properties abroad, but they don't get bonus depreciation. So foreign properties have a little different depreciation.
Well,
schedule.
that's all more reason to buy in the U.S. And yeah, I mean, guys, the depreciation carries forward, right? It's always recapturable when you sell the property, no matter if you're doing accelerated depreciation or not. But that's the benefit of doing a 1031 exchange, right? And continuing that forward. But it's so important if we don't go back to 100% bonus depreciation and it's not retroactive, it makes all the sense in the world to own property this year, whether you need tax benefits or not, because that allows you to lock in the 60% versus the 40% next year. Amanda and Matt, thank you guys so much. I know you got to get out of here. You're welcome to hang out and listen to some creative stuff on buying new construction if you'd like, but we really appreciate your guys' input on this. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to our section. Any final words from you guys?
No, thank you so much for having us. I know we try to just do like a fire hose round of everything tonight, but yeah, excited to come back. We will come back in January and do some pre-planning for next year. And we got to get in the car, but I think we'll download from our phone and listen in passively to this getting paid to buy properties. I like that.
I'm going to blow
Whatever
your
you said,
guys' mind.
It sounded like I like it.
I'm
Thanks,
gonna blow
guys.
your
Appreciate it.
mind. Thank you so much, Amanda and Matt. All right, everyone,
Thanks, guys.
let's get in here and talk about how you can actually apply some of these, and we'll go through a lot of numeric examples so you can actually understand. And I'm pretty versed in tax as well because I have great advisors like Amanda and Matt. And so feel free to continue to put in your questions in the Q&A box. We've disabled the chat because we have hundreds of people on here. And Rocky, I keep seeing a bunch of people raise your guys' hands. We can't call on you. We have hundreds of people on this, and we got to go through this efficiently. So put your questions in the Q&A, and Adam and I will do our best to work through those. I promise you we will stay tonight until, even if Adam has to jump off, I will stay tonight until we answer all those questions. But let's get into this. So here's how you can actually apply these benefits to save thousands or tens of thousands, some of you hundreds of thousands, and some of you millions of dollars of taxes this year. We have clients we work with every single week that save hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxes buying strategic quality real estate, and we help you navigate through that. So let's talk about some of the incentives we have and how you can actually apply some of these tax benefits and go through the numbers. Most of you should be familiar with who I am. My name is Zach Lemaster. I'm the founder and owner of Rent to Retirement. And this is Adam. He is our sales manager and senior investment strategist and tax extraordinaire. But he'll go through some property examples as well here with you in a little bit. Guys, our job at Rent to Retirement is to find the best deals across the country and make those available to you. And make those available to you at steeply discounted prices that you would not get access to on your own because of the builder relationships that we have. And also scour the nation for the best financing options. We'll talk about creative loan options where you can buy properties, multiple investment properties with as little as 5% down. That's just unheard of. Most people think you have to buy a single family or small multifamily with 20, 25% down. You just simply don't. That's a conventional loan. We have many of different loan structures where you can buy properties with less money down, and that allows you to stretch your capital further to, guess what, create bigger tax benefits. I will literally show you how you can buy $1 million worth of real estate if you qualify for these loans, buy over $1 million worth of real estate to save over $300,000 in taxes without a dollar invested in your properties. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't take work. You have to qualify for the loans. You have to have some capital in the beginning, but that is something I will cover with you tonight. It doesn't have to be $1 million. It could be $100,000 of taxes or $100,000 of properties. So stay tuned for that. Rent to Retirement's goal is to bring you the best deals across the country where our local teams handle everything for you. So you don't have to manage properties from a distance. It doesn't matter what your experience level or where you're geographically located. We bring you the best deals across the country that maximize cash flow appreciation and equity, allowing you to invest in the best deals in the best markets without having to buy yourself being another job being a property manager. And we're able to do this because we have national and regional builder relationships. How our company operates, you guys, is that we are really a real estate marketplace and education company. Like I said, we find the best deals across the country and package those together with the best options. And we coach you through how to build an investment strategy to take advantage of these tax benefits and use the best financing to ultimately expedite your financial goals. Not only reach them, but actually expedite those. So let me just give you a real specific example. We also build. We have properties that we're building ourselves. Adam's building properties. I'm building properties. Our company's building properties. We may sell some of those retail, keep them, sell them to investors. But that's a very small portion of what we do. The bigger portion of what we do is we actually partner with national and regional builders in markets that we identify to be successful investment markets, and we're able to negotiate wholesale type of pricing with those builders because of the volume play, because our community of hundreds of thousands of investors is buying thousands of properties every single year. We are, as a community, are able to go in and negotiate with these national regional builders to have steeply discounted prices that we pass forward onto you as the investor, that you would not have access to on your own because you as the individual is not buying hundreds of thousands of properties collectively. And so there's power in numbers, and we're able to bring you wholesale type of pricing from excellent inventory that we cherry pick in some of the best markets. These are national builders like D.R. Horton, LGI, Toll Brothers, Lennar. These are some of the award-winning builders that have national inventory that are selling properties retail all day long. But we're able to cherry pick the best ones where we see investment opportunity and negotiate deals for you that you would not access on your own. An institutional buyer like Blackstone would come in and get a steeply discounted portfolio because they're buying a lot of properties from a national builder. We're able to accomplish the same thing and pass those savings on to you. That is a big part of the value add that you get access to being part of the investment community at Rent to Retirement, in addition to us showing you how you can create these massive tax benefits with some of these loan structures. So let's talk now about some of the new buying incentives. So specifically speaking, we go to a national home builder and we basically say, hey, we're going to commit to buying X number of 300 houses this year. And because of that, we want wholesale type of pricing for our investor community. And we're the first company to bring wholesale type of pricing at a national level to the individual investor that they would not have access to. So you can buy A-class new construction properties significantly below market value being part of our community. And we have the management team, the lending, the insurance providers, the tax professionals, everything you need to help you build a strategy to be a successful investor and expedite your goals. That is our goal. But let's actually get into the numbers, right? This is what everyone wants to see is the actual numbers. So on an A-class investment property in one different part of the country, we usually see between a 6 to 10%, sometimes 11 or 12%. It's property dependent. We typically see between a 6 to 10% incentive. That's the wholesale type of pricing that our community gets access to that we're able to pass on to you. You can use that. The exciting benefit to this, where this gets really exciting, is you can use this however you want. So I will go through a numeric example here with a property to show you exactly what this translates to. But a brand new construction A-class property that is positive cash flow in a growth market where you will see both appreciation and increase in rents year after year, as well as home prices, you get immediate access to equity. You're buying that at a steeply discounted price. But you don't have to. Here's the best part. You don't have to take that equity immediately. You can actually get it as cash back at closing. I guarantee you won't find this type of an opportunity anywhere else because no one else offers it. We are the first company and pioneers in this space to be able to offer these type of incentives. Or you can use those incentives to buy rates down into the threes, which the Fed is never going to get our rates down to the threes. By the way, the Fed just lowered the rate for another 0.25% today. So rates are coming down. Hallelujah. That's great. That means, guess what? It's going to be more buyers in the market, and these incentives are starting to go away. So these incentives are available through the end of November. Adam, put our link to schedule with our team in the chat box. So
Already done.
Cool. So previously, we put a link to schedule with Matt and Amanda to go through tax planning. You still can do that. I know that you can still make some moves before the end of the year. That's definitely applicable for 2025 too. What Adam just put in is a link to schedule with our team to talk about properties and investment strategy. Guys, all these tax benefits we just talked about, you can still make big, huge moves in 2024, but timing is essential. It takes at least 30 to 40 days to close a property, 30 to 40 business days with a lender. That means you really have like about 2 weeks to get pre-approved, put properties under contract, and turn that contract over to your lender to confidently close before the end of the year. So you can still accomplish everything that we're going to talk about today for 2024 to make big moves on your taxes, but you have to own and close on the property this year. So this means we're under the gun. You need to take action like now, because within the next 1 to 2 weeks, you need to have found a property. You need to be pre-approved. You need to put that property under contract to reserve it. One, because the incentives we're talking about are only good through the end of November. But secondly, more importantly, if you want to utilize these for tax benefits this year, you have to do that this year and close on it in 2024. You need to give the lender time to do that. All right. So, and guys, I see a bunch of you raising your hands. Put your questions in the Q&A, please. We can't call on people. We got still 215 people here right now. So put your questions in the Q&A, and I promise you we'll get through those. Here's a property example. So on a $300,000 property, and we have properties on our website that are publicly available anywhere from $130,000 upwards of $500,000-$600,000, depending. Our average property is probably $200,000 to $300,000. That's an average new construction A-class property in a growth market that will have positive cash flow. So that's the number we're using today on your property example. All right, so a $300,000 property, basically being part of the rent to retirement community, you get access to steeply discounted properties and property incentives, again, that you would not get access to on your own, because we buy a lot of property as a group, as a community, and we're able to go and negotiate these deals to work with the wholesale division, not the retail division, the wholesale division at these national builders that typically only an institutional buyer would have access to. So $300,000 property, let's say there's a 10% incentive on that. That means you can do one of three things with that, because you use this however you want. Okay, you can use this incentive however you want. One, you can take immediate equity on the property. So on a $300,000 property, 10% of that is $30,000. So you can come in with immediate equity. That home will still appraise at, that's real money. That's $30,000 of immediate equity that you can come into on a property to set yourself up to have immediate equity on the property. You can also, that also lowers the loan amount. That allows you to cash flow better. It also allows you to be in an equity position, immediate equity position, where you can either cash out, refinance, or sell the property and 1031 exchange it quicker without having to wait for more equity to build up. So you have immediate equity on the property. So when people say, "Oh, turnkey, you can't buy," you're overpaying or not buying property below market value. Possibly, but not with our company, because we've negotiated these wholesale type of deals. So you can literally buy a property, have immediate equity. The best part is you don't have to do that. You can take that money back at closing. That is actual cash. You guys, that 10% is actual cash. So you're buying a $300,000 property, you can get that immediate equity in it, or you can say, no, I'd rather take that 10% back at closing. So think about this. You buy a $300,000 property with 20% down with a conventional loan. It's positive cash flow at 8 to 12% cash on cash return. That's probably $400 or $500 a month in net passive income. 20% of $300,000 house is $60,000. That's your down payment, where you get immediately $30,000 back in your pocket, right? We are actually giving that back to you at closing. No one else is doing that. No one else has ever done that as far as I'm concerned. So you get that money back at closing. That covers half of your down payment. All right. And that skyrockets your ROI. Or you can use that $30,000, that 10%, to buy your rate down into the threes, or take a little bit of equity, or buy the rate down and to get some cash back. We will help you structure a deal that makes the most sense for you, right? Because if you're someone who has limited capital and you want to stretch your money further to buy more properties, it makes the more sense for you to get cash back. If you're someone who wants to maximize cash flow and you're not limited on capital, maybe it makes the most sense to buy your rate down and have a little bit of equity position, so you're maximizing cash flow. So we help you build a strategy on your buying opportunity that makes the most sense for you based on your situation. But ultimately, that's up to you. So again, we're getting between 6 to 10%, sometimes 11, 12% of basically incentives on brand new A-construction properties in growth markets that you can take that 6 to 12% and utilize it however you want. This is unlimited inventory, good through the rest of the month through the November. First come, first served basis. If you guys are serious about maximizing tax benefits and buying properties below market value, or getting this incentive to utilize how you want, you need to schedule with our team, because it's on a first come, first served basis. We need you to be pre-approved with the lender. We have excellent lender recommendations, and we need to help you identify a property and put it under contract. That's how you reserve a property. Once they're gone, they're gone. All right. This is where stuff gets really high level. Here's how you can buy a property with no money down. All right. So think about this for a sec. $300,000 property, the example that we just went through. 20%, your normal conventional loan is 20% down. So that would be $60,000. Again, you can have on this particular example, there's a 10% incentive, which you can either use as equity to buy below market value, or you can get that 10% back at closing. So with a normal conventional 20% down loan, you're getting 10% back at closing. That's half of your down payment, right? So you're really into the property for 10% down. We have, where this gets really exciting, is we have lenders that will provide these are local credit unions that we've helped develop loan products specifically for investors. These are portfolio loans they hold in-house, where you can buy up to 5 investment properties with as little as 5% down. All right, and I'll go through the loan terms that I've outlined here. But think about this for a moment. If you're buying a brand new construction property with 5% down, and you were getting possibly 10% back at closing in cash, so we're actually paying you that cash back at closing, that means that not only you're buying a property for no money down, you're possibly getting paid to buy an investment property, an A-class new construction property in a growth market. You can buy with 5% down, where you get 10% of that cash back. That means you're buying a property potentially for no money down, and you are also have an additional 5% to cover your closing costs, to put money back in your pocket. You can actually get paid to buy new construction A-class investment properties if you qualify for this loan. And so where this gets really crazy is we start talking about these tax benefits. And this isn't a sales pitch on like what to do, because this is exactly the things that I am doing to save millions of dollars in taxes every single year, to be able to have more capital to go buy real estate, which has additional tax benefits, that you get the snowball effect. This is how you build tremendous amounts of wealth in a very short period of time, because taxes are the biggest thing. That's the biggest expense we're all going to have throughout our entire life, hands down. And it's not getting any better, right? So the easiest way to give yourself an immediate raise is pay less taxes, to buy real estate that has crazy tax benefits that then you can save money that you would otherwise give to Uncle Sam to reinvest into real estate. And that's how you build generational wealth within a few short period of years. But think about this for a moment. If you're someone who bought a $300,000 property, and you're using 5% down to buy that property with this loan structure, which is $15,000, and you get a 10% incentive, and you get a 10% incentive cash back, you're putting $15,000 down to buy an A-class $300,000 property. You get $30,000 back on that. That's not only covering your down payment and your closing costs, you're actually getting money back in your pocket to cover everything. Now that $300,000 property is likely going to, and you run a cost segregation study on that property, you could get possibly a $50,000 to $100,000 tax deduction on that property. So buying a property with no money down, you can create double-digit or possibly triple-digit tax deductions. So if you're a high-income earner and you're paying a ton of taxes, this may be something you want to pay attention to. Amanda and Matt just showed us how you can take accelerated depreciation against your active income, whether you're a real estate professional or not, using the short-term loophole, and create a huge tax deduction through doing one of those strategies. Or if you're someone that makes $150,000 or less, you get this immediately. You get up to a $25,000 tax deduction immediately without having to even worry about real estate professional status or the short-term loophole. That's something that is applicable to everyone. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. That's a down payment on another property. So just to review this again, we have lenders that will offer 5% down on up to five investment properties. We have multiple properties, new construction A-class assets, that have a 6 to 12% incentive available, where you can take that as an immediate price reduction to have equity, or you can take it back at cash at closing. You can also use it to buy down your rates. So if you're buying properties with 5% down loan, and you have an incentive that's 5 to 10% cash back, that's covering all of your down payment, you're into a brand new construction property with no money down. The one caveat I will say, these properties, if you do a 5% down loan, they may not be positive cash flow, because you have a 95% loan on the property. And so your loan payment's higher. The interest rate is also a little bit higher. But you don't have to do 5% down, right? Maybe there's a balancing act where you do 6, 7, 8% down, where maybe it's break even or positive cash flow, but allows you to strategically stretch your capital further. If you have a $60,000 down payment, you can use that on one $300,000 property as 20% down, or maybe you could use that on 4 of those same properties using 5% down, getting 4 times the tax benefits. Do you see how powerful this could be? All right, I know I'm being long-winded. Adam's giving me the look, so we need to get to some properties, but I will run through this quickly. Guys, if you have additional questions on this, schedule a time with our team, right? Adam put the link in the Q&A. That's to schedule a time with our team and our investment strategist so you can learn more about this and so you can get some coaching on how to apply this towards your specific situation. Here's the details of why 5% down loan, because I know a lot of people are going to ask. It is a 30-year amortized loan. It's a 10-year term, so it's amortized over 30 years based on payments. The loan is due in 10 years. There's no PMI. There's no private mortgage insurance. With a conventional loan, if you put less than 20% down, normally you have mortgage insurance, right? That's additional cost. It sucks. With this loan structure, it's a portfolio loan that credit unions hold in-house. There's no mortgage insurance and there's no prepayment penalty. So likely a lot of people that are doing this, if they're like myself, if you're putting 5% down and you're maximizing tax benefits, even though it may not be positive cash flow, but you're getting money back in your pocket with the incentives. So you kind of like use that to cover your negative cash flow. But it's maximizing the tax benefits. I will likely sell or refinance that property within 2 to 4 years because it's building equity. The cash flow is going up. I'll probably refinance out of it and make it positive cash flow. But again, I bought it this year because of the tax strategy with it. So 30-year loan, 10-year term, you need to qualify. So they need a minimum of 660. I think your credit needs to be as high as 740 to qualify for the 5% down truly. So you need to have good credit. You got to apply with a lender, right? And you have DTI, your debt to income below 45%. Guys, I'm not here to pitch this loan. You can use whatever loan product you want. This is just one unique strategy where you can buy more property with less money and maximize your tax benefits. All right, I think I went through all of this pretty in detail, probably belabored the point. Let's talk about tax. Let's use a tax example and accelerated depreciation. So here's my napkin math, and here's something that Matt and Amanda maybe didn't get into with the specifics with numbers on how to save accelerated depreciation, which I will for you. So my napkin math, $300,000 property. Generally with properties, I usually say there's about a 30%. I said 30% is usually the napkin math where my studies come in at. The reality is that's a conservative number. Most of my studies are actually between 36 to 44%. Now, technically in cost segregation, they're removing land. I'm not doing that for these examples because most of the places where we build at, it's the land is minimal, $10,000 typical lot. It's very cheap, sometimes more. But anyways, we're removing land, so we'll just focus on the property price. Generally speaking, back of the napkin math. If you want to know, like, all right, I'm looking at this property. How much am I possibly going to save in taxes looking at it? I usually take about a 30% evaluation. So on a $100,000 property, 30% would be $30,000. On keeping with the $300,000 property example, 30% would be $90,000. So looking at this example, you bought a $300,000 property, 30% of that is $90,000. That's your bonus depreciation. At 100% bonus depreciation, you could take $90,000 against your taxes that year. And guys, again, I'm extremely confident we will be back to 100% bonus depreciation. But this year, without any legislative changes yet, we are at 60% bonus depreciation. Next year goes to 40. This is why it makes sense to buy properties this year, not next year. Even if you don't need tax benefits this year, it's about planning for the future. Get an extra 20%. So $300,000 property, 30%, $90,000. Now that if you're at 100% bonus, you could take that $90,000 that year. At 60% of the $90,000, because at 2024 we're at 60% bonus depreciation, that means you're getting a $64,000 true tax deduction. This is conservative numbers. I've actually yet to have one that's only 30%. I had one that was like 30.3%. Every single cost segregation study I've done, which is on every property I buy, all my studies have come in above 30%. Some of them, like I said, 40, 44%. So this means that on a $300,000 property, whether you're putting 20% down to buy it, or you're using 5% down and getting the kickback to buy with no money down, you can confidently plan, probably give or take, at least a $54,000 tax deduction this year. If you made $100,000 this year and you bought this property with no money down, or whatever money you put down, doesn't matter. You could, reduce your taxable liability to $46,000 just by investing in real estate. That's significant, right? That's significant. If you're in a state that has state income tax, in addition to where we're at federally, that's significant. You're saving like actual tax. That's actual money in your pocket that you would otherwise be giving to Uncle Sam and never seeing again, that you can actually save and have to, guess what? Reinvest to buy additional properties that have additional tax benefits. So this is an example of like generally tax. So if you bought $1 million, well, I think that's the next thing that I go through. So if you bought $1 million worth of real estate, whether you're putting 20% down, 25% down, 5% down, 0% down, however you want to skin the cat, about $1 million worth of real estate, 30% of that is $300,000. That's your 100% bonus depreciation, which you likely be able to take or retroactive. But this year, 60% of that $300,000 is $180K that you deduct in 2024. So think about this for a moment. Let's say you're just putting your normal 20% down to ensure that the properties are positive cash flow. You can spend $200,000 to buy $1 million worth of real estate, because $200K is 20% of $1 million, to possibly get $180,000 tax deduction in this year, right? Or you could do what we talked about with the 5% down option, where you put, $50,000 down on, say, up to 5 properties or whatever it is. You put $50,000 down with 5% down to buy $1 million worth of real estate to get a $180,000 tax deduction. Or you could buy some of the properties we talked about where you put 5% down, you get the 5 to 10% kickback at closing. And so you can buy $1 million worth of real estate with zero money down to get a likely $180,000 minimum tax deduction this year. If you earned $100,000 this year, not only if you're doing this, again, either being a real estate professional or a short-term loophole, which we will talk about as well, if you put zero money down to buy $1 million worth of real estate and you got a $180,000 tax deduction, and you made, say you made $100,000 this year, not only would you wipe out all of your taxes for this year and pay zero taxes, in fact, you'd probably get a refund because you've been paying throughout the year, or your employer has. You would have no taxes to pay this year. You'd have $80,000 that carries into next year, right? So your next $80,000 that you make next year, you're not paying a dime of taxes on it. This is how powerful this is. And the simple fact that you can buy a significant amount of real estate with less money down out of pocket makes this very attractive and very accessible to a lot of people. So I went through a lot of these examples, and I won't belabor the point too much. The point is here, guys, that we have a ton of options for you guys. We are very ecstatic about maximizing your tax benefits, because that is the number one thing that I learned as a real estate investor that allowed us to replace, for those of you who don't know my story, my wife and I are both optometrists by education. Within probably 5 to 6 years of investing, we replaced our active income as optometrists, which was both 6-figure income. We were able to replace that within 5 to 6 years of investing in good markets with good teams like we do. And we focused on new construction, but what we really focused on was maximizing our tax benefits, doing things like this, right? Saving. Our goal every single year is to buy enough real estate to offset our income from all tax sources, and then reinvest that money to buy more real estate, to have additional cash flow, to buy more real estate, to have additional tax benefits. That's how you get the snowball effect. You still have time in 2024 to do these things, but you don't have a lot of time. You need to get pre-approved with the lender. You need to talk with our team to build a strategy, which again, Adam put the link in the chat box so you can set up with our team. These properties that we have these incentives on, where you can get 5 to 12% cash back at closing, or take an equity position where you get an immediate price reduction, whatever you want to do, or buy the rate down. Those are on first come, first serve basis, and those incentives are good through the end of November. That's just because we have limited inventory and time. And so it's to your advantage. If you want to employ some of these creative strategies we've talked about, you have to take action, and you have to take action quickly if you want to close before the end of the year. Our goal, Rent to Retirement, guys, is to bring you the best deals across the country and handle everything for you, from management, from insurance, from lending, and from the strategy building to help you employ the tax benefits we talked about here, but also help you understand what is the best market for you to invest in, what type of assets. There's certain markets that are better cash flow versus appreciation. And so our goal is to work with you to introduce you to the professionals like Matt and Amanda, the right lenders and the right real estate attorneys and all the people in place that are property managers, all the people you need to be a successful investor long term. But you got to take action. You got to get started. Again, guys, Adam put the link in the chat box to schedule a time with our team, and our availability is filling up quickly. I already see that there's a lot of people booking calls. So we're probably into next week at this point, but schedule time with our team. Let's talk about how we can help you save hundreds of thousands of dollars on taxes, hopefully not only this year, but future years, employing some of these strategies, and buy steeply discounted new construction inventory utilizing some of these incentives. So Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you here next. I don't know if you want to hit me with some common questions that people keep asking. And actually, we got to turn over to yours, because what you had sent me does not have your slides on it yet.
It should. The one I just shared with you, it should have it on there.
Well, then I didn't open that one up. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing. Hit me with some questions, or you can answer some questions while I pull up your latest.
Well, I've pulled a solid 45 questions of answer. I think. Can y'all see this?
No, they can't.
Oh, okay. So let me.
You're not sharing. Just
right.
read the question.
Yeah. Oh, the questions. Are the loans dependent on a W-2? Yes, they are. You do have to have, well, not W-2, but verifiable income is what you're going to need to have for these properties to work. I'll go into my slideshow. I'm assuming y'all can all see this now, correct?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. So some of the examples that we're going to show here, this is an example we have in Florida where it's in Palm Coast, Florida. It's called our Bing model. You can find it on the website. It's priced at $3,029. Our property manager is very, very confident that they can get $2,100 a month rent. That's kind of the floor of what they think they can do in 30 to 45 days. If you look on our website and see the pro forma there, which I know there was a question in there about, they noticed that it's not hitting the 1% rule that people talk about, and how do we make properties cash flow. The fact of the matter is the 1% rule is not a real rule. The 1% rule is just something made up back in the day to kind of say, does this property make sense or not? And for people to decide if they want to really dive into it. The question isn't what's the rent compared to the price. The question is, how does the property perform, right? And if you're able to buy the right property at the right price with the right rent, who cares what the rent to purchase price, percentage is? It's all about, does the property work? Now this one, if you take advantage of the incentives the way that we've broken it down, which is a little bit of rate buy down, covering property management, all of those things, your expected cash flow is over $750 a month, which is pretty dang good. Your total ROI between cash flow, cash on cash, and tax benefits is 16%. But here's the part that Zach was talking about. If you take this real example and you do the cost seg at 30%, and you $90,870. If you take that 60% this year, that's $54,522 that you can offset with this one cost seg. So that's on, if you're doing 20% down, that's roughly 60,000. If you're doing 25%, that's 75,000, and you're able to take advantage of this. Now, why do we invest in Palm Coast? Flagler County is projected to be one of the top 5 fastest growing counties in Florida through 2030. And it is ranked 5th in business growth among the top 10 counties in Florida, with a 12% growth in a 3-year period. And I think everybody will probably remember Florida's been growing pretty significantly since over the last 4 to 10 years. And I put this graphic in here about the population by generation, because a lot of people think of Florida and they start thinking about, a retirement community and this, that, and the other. Well, if you look at who's actually living in Palm Coast, you'll see it's pretty well staggered in terms of demographics. So you've got a lot of people there of working age and, consistently working, jobs are moving there. And so you've got people from, birth through, obviously, your 80, 90-year-olds as well. And so you've got a diverse demographic, you've got jobs coming, you've got all of this growth in terms of population and business. I mean, it's just a great place to be. I mean, Florida is, you can almost throw a dart at Florida and hit a good market to invest in. But you've got the county growing fifth in business growth in one of the fastest growing states in the country. Another property we have is in Dunweg, Missouri, which I know most of y'all have probably never really looked at, never thought of. This property is a brand new construction property. It's $213,390. The expected rent, which our property manager has been hitting rents every single time we've sold a property in this market, is $1,625. We expect it to cash flow at $507 a month with a total return on investment of 17%. If you buy this $213,000 home, we expect your cost seg to come in at least $64,000, which gives you a potential tax savings of over $38,000. Now, I know I mentioned that you may not have heard about this area, so you may think, oh, well, where is that? Why would you invest there? Well, the reason we're investing there is look at this median home price growth from January 2018 through July of 2024. We're looking at 102.34% or 11% per year in the area. And not only that, but your rent growth since October of 2021 is over 29%. And these are areas that we have builds in where the home ownership rate is 70% and sometimes up to 80%. So these are communities that are very, very owner occupied heavy, which tends to lead to more appreciation, which is why you're seeing this price growth, why you're seeing the rent growth, because there just are not many rentals available in the area, especially new construction. If you look in this market, the new construction numbers are really low. So you have the best product, not just on your block, but you have the best product in the entire surrounding area. And so we have a lot of demand for these properties from renters. And so with these, like Zach said, we have a very limited inventory on these, and we're trying our best. We've negotiated with the builder and we have these prices and the incentives locked in for now. But they could come back to us and say, hey, our retail department says they want these properties for themselves, so we're taking away the investor incentives. And when that happens, sorry, when it's gone, it's gone. And this one that I'm pulling up here is our Monarch model that's in Elgin, South Carolina. And we'll get into the market a little bit more in a second, but this is the Monarch model. It's priced at $292,900. It actually has rented at $2,150. This is the one that excited me a lot because our property manager, when we first met them, said, oh, I can get $2,000 a month for this. We closed on our first one there. I got an email 2 weeks later that said, hey, I just rented this property. We got $2,150. So our property manager gave us a very conservative number and we got to bump those numbers up. I always love when we get to do that on our properties. 99% of our properties hit the, that rent, or 90, I think we're at like 97 to 100% of rents achieved. Some markets were even over it. So, but when we get to bump it up $150 because the market can handle it, it's phenomenal. So we expect it to cash flow over $650 a month, total return on investment of 16%, cost seg potential savings of almost $88,000, and the potential tax savings of over $52,000. And you can see the photos, nice build, good quality, in a good neighborhood right outside. And why do we like it? South Carolina's population growth in 2023 was the fastest growing state in the nation. And we're right outside the capital of Columbia with this market. And the rent growth since November of 2021, which is 3 years ago, over 30%. I mean, South Carolina is a phenomenal state to invest in. We get questions about Carolina inventory all the time. And so we've been moving these properties because they're in demand, they're renting quickly, and we just love the Carolinas, and like most investors do. And so when you can make the numbers work on these properties, it's really a beautiful thing. So
our goal is to identify the best markets throughout the country, you guys, and bring those deals to you, those off-market, steeply discounted deals that you would not have access to on your own, with all the things you need to be set up for success, management, the right lenders, having the property managers, everything is set up for you so you can invest in the best markets throughout the country, regardless of your location, regardless of your investing experience, where we are your guide to help you build a strategy that will help you not only reach but expedite your investment goals. And so, Adam, I'll let you finish this off, and then we got to
Yeah.
get into questions because we have over 50 questions we haven't answered here.
So I'm going to run back just so people know this Bing model, we've got 10%. This is one of the 10% ones Zach was talking about. This one in Dunwich, I believe, is 7% that you could potentially get back on it. I could be, don't quote me on that one, but I believe it's 7%. And this one in South Carolina, you can get 6% back. So that's kind of the quick numbers there. Like Zach said, in 2024, it's coming to a close. We're going to send out a link after this webinar to everybody that'll show you where you can go to start getting pre-approved. Because if you want to get under contract and get something closed by the end of the year, you've got to start uploading your docs so that they can get you pre-approved. Because if you're not pre-approved, you can't get a property, right? Like you need that loan to do it. So shared the link in the chat box. We'll post it there again before we wrap up here in a little bit. But start taking action, because otherwise you're just sitting around doing your paralysis of analysis and all of that. So please, for the love of all that's good, take advantage of the time.
Well,
Let me put it this way: we were selling a lot of properties in various parts of Florida before you had the option to get 10% back. We're still selling properties in Florida, but if it makes sense now, take 10% cash back or 10% equity and just enjoy it. So
yeah, I
I don't want you to come back to me in 6 months and say, I want my 10%. And I look at you and go, that's nice.
That's
can't
not-
get you that.
that's not normal, right? It has a lot to do with the inventory supply and the negotiation power. And builders give us these incentives for a limited time. These are not normal things that are always offered, right? We don't always offer properties at a 6 to 12% discount. That instead of taking that 6 to 12% as a discount, you can take it as cash back. No, and there's not options out there, guys, where you can buy brand new construction properties and just get over half of your down payment covered, or possibly all of it if you're using a loan with 5% down, or possibly a scenario where you buy properties with zero money down and get money back at closing. I'm sure a lot of you have questions on this because it's not normal. It will not last. This is on specific inventory that's only available through the rest of the month. And this is we intentionally did the webinar on this now because from a tax perspective, this can be extremely powerful on your taxes, as we went through and showed you kind of the numbers on how to take accelerated depreciation, whether you're a real estate professional or short-term loophole. Guys, we got about 50 questions here that we'll go through, 55 questions. So we're gonna hammer through these quick. We're gonna try to do this in just a few minutes. So if you have last minute questions, put them into the Q&A box. But if you understand we may not be able to get to everything today, we can't help you do like an individual planning session today because we still have hundreds of people on here. And so schedule a time with our team so we can spend an individual one-on-one. We don't charge anything to work with our investors. We make our money through building and selling houses. So this is all free consultation, and we spend as much time with you as you need. Now, we prefer to work with people who are serious and take action, right? And we'll dedicate more time with those investors that are serious about taking action and saving a significant amount in taxes. But this is probably tonight's webinar. I'm so passionate about that. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but this is the number one thing that allowed us to get to the next level of wealth building in real estate investing, is being an intentional and strategic investor about saving in taxes, because that just allows you to have more money in your pocket you otherwise give to Uncle Sam that then you can reinvest, right? And when you actually run the ROI doing some of these creative things, it just goes through the roof. So again, we have incentives in some of the best markets throughout the country, which Adam showed you just a handful. We have way more than that available on our website. This is a way where you can buy properties at 6 to 12%. These are brand new A-class new construction properties in growth markets where you can buy them at 6 to 12% below market value, or get that 6 to 12% back at closing. And you can match that with, do that simultaneously while buying multiple properties with 5% down to possibly buy all these properties with no money down. Anyways, let's get into some questions. Adam, I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to read through these real quickly. Just interject here if you need. David wants to know, recording this going out, didn't catch it all. Yep, going out tomorrow. Keep an eye out on your email. Can I get, yep, copy this webinar, Grace. Yes, check your email tomorrow. Where's the link to get pre-approved? Why don't you put that?
Yep. I will grab that one right now.
Okay, he's going to put the link. Now, it depends. Link to get pre-approved for our preferred lender with conventional 20 to 25% down, or the link to get approved for the 5% down. Adam, why don't you put in both of those and specify which they are, and then put in the link to, again, schedule with our team below that. Anonymous says, your tax saving number is 300K profit, 30% equals 100K, 60K, but that is not a tax deduction, but that is a tax deduction, not a tax credit. If you use a short-term rental, that's 60K in your, so tax savings at the, assuming 37% tax bracket, not 60K. No. And you didn't, this is anonymous, so I don't know who I'm speaking to on this. What we showed you is a tax deduction. We didn't show you your cash savings, right? So if you, you need to multiply that by your tax bracket. Now you use 37%, I'm assuming you're in the highest tax bracket, but you're not including your state income tax. So if you're in a state like California, Oregon, some of these states that have higher tax brackets, New York, you need to add that to your tax bracket as well. So again, if you have a cost segregation for simple math where you get a $100,000 tax deduction, that doesn't mean you're necessarily saving $100,000 in taxes, right? That means you're reducing your tax structure by $100,000. So on $100,000, let's say you earn $200,000 in income that year, you get $100,000 of tax deduction through cost segregation. That means that you reduced your tax basis from $200,000 to $100,000. So you saved $100,000 or you reduced your tax liability by $100,000. So if you're in one of these states that have state income tax, and let's say your combined federal and state tax is 45%, on that $100,000 that you reduced your taxes by, you saved the equivalent of $45,000 cash that you would have otherwise paid in taxes that year. Or if you already paid that, you get a check for $45,000 back, right? That's a down payment on, at least one, possibly multiple properties. Can you get someone else? Can you get a cost segregation on a long-term rental? You can get cost segregation on every single property. It doesn't matter if it's a short or long-term rental. Jay says, can I get unencumbered financing of up to 1.5? I don't know if that's 1.5 million, or purchase these properties in mobile home parks. For Canadians, Jay, you're going to have to schedule with us. That seems like a detailed question, very specific to you. You'll have to schedule with us to go through that. Ms. G says, could you show an example of numbers using a traditional approach of 20% down with no cost seg? Guys, all the numbers we talked about are normal properties with 20% down. You still get tax deductions without doing a cost segregation study. That doesn't change anything. If you look on our website, the pro formas are all a normal 20 to 25% down loan. The only benefit of doing a cost segregation is if you want to take your normal depreciation and accelerate that. And I see a lot of these questions around normal depreciation. How does that change? So everyone is required per IRS code to take depreciation. On a residential property, your depreciation is 27.5 years. And you're required, because the IRS treats you, you're actually penalized if you don't take it. This is why you need a good CPA to file your taxes to make sure you're not messing up depreciation. But this is the best benefit of investing. One of the best benefits of investing in real estate. You buy a $100,000 property, and you divide that by 27.5 years. That means about every year, and I think that's like 3.3K or something. It's just over 3,000. So that means every year on that $100,000 property, you're taking a $3,000 or $3,300 tax deduction. Normal depreciation, right? With cost segregation, all you were doing is you're accelerating a portion of that to take in year one. So on that $100,000 property, if you take accelerated depreciation in year one, that means that's 30%, right? So of that $100,000 depreciation that you would normally take over 27.5 years, again, roughly $3,000 a year, you're taking 30% of that, or $30,000 in year one. Now, where this gets really attractive is where you can offset that against your active income. That's the strategy, right? You don't have to do cost seg. You don't have to do that, but you can take normal depreciation. But if you take that 30% or $30,000 in year one, that's powerful, because the time value of money means that's what you would otherwise pay to Uncle Sam and never see again. Now you get that money, actually cash, that you can then reinvest and actually, guess what? Earn interest on, and earn an income on, and reinvest to have additional tax benefits. That's the compounding effect, right? So that's why someone would even do a cost segregation in the first place. But you don't have to. And I see a lot of questions about what happens to the rest of the depreciation. You take it normally, right? So you still take your normal depreciation throughout the rest of the lifespan, that 27 and a half years. It's just lower because you took a portion of it in year one. So on the $100,000 property, we take 30%, $30,000 in year one against all income sources. You still take the rest of the 70% year after year. So those depreciation is slightly less because you front loaded it.
Yeah, Julian asks, are there any properties with positive cash flow with 5 or no money down options? The answer is with 5% down, some of our rehabs will cash flow.
Ohio.
Yeah, like our Ohio stuff, they're usually break even or slightly positive. It's not going to be like a cash cow or anything. You're looking at that, break even to maybe $20 positive. So
If you guys have,
you can, not new construction though.
yeah. So there are, to just reiterate that, there are properties that can be positive cash flow with 0 to 5% down. Not all of them, right? Those are probably the lower price Midwestern properties. Talk to your rent retirement rep on that. And again, guys, because Adam and I are not going to be able to answer all the questions, and we can't stay much longer. We want to help every single person on an individual basis. But if you're serious about investing and saving taxes and utilizing some of these strategies, you have to book an appointment with our team to go through this in more depth. And Adam put the link in there in the chat box to be able to book that with our team. Someone tell us if that link is working. Please put in there if you haven't, if you've scheduled an appointment or if you haven't been able to, let us know. Because I know that it will fill up. Phil says, House San Antonio, awesome. But we'll have to talk deeper. We do have properties in San Antonio. Do you have multifamily properties? Yes, we do. We have small multi. A lot of what we focus on is single family. And that's where you get the best loan products that we've been talking about. A lot of questions about insurance, insurance in Florida. Guys, the short answer is no. I could spend all day talking about this, but the people that are having these huge insurance hikes are people that invest in flood zones and have older properties. On brand new construction properties that are built to code, these are concrete block homes, they're not built in flood zones. Your insurance is not skyrocketing. Our average insurance policy premium is $1,000 on a brand new construction $300,000 property in the Southeast because they're not in flood zones and they're new construction. So how you avoid huge insurance hikes is to invest in new construction, not in flood zones. And we have these quotes for you, right? So, I mean, you can use whatever policy you want, but we actually have legitimate quotes to prove that to you. And that's part of the due diligence, going through and getting your own homeowner's insurance quote before you close. Ryan, do you have a recommendation on who we can use for tax and cost seg? We certainly do. Email us and set up a time with our team. We'd be happy to share our cost segregation specialist with you. What's the difference between cost segregation and accelerated depreciation? Accelerated depreciation is a concept of taking depreciation in year one, your cost segregation, and this is something we didn't cover, so this is a really good question. Your cost segregation is a study. It's a study on the house that an engineer produces that basically outlines all the things on the house that are not going to last 27 and a half years. So they have things that are called 5 and 15-year depreciation, your carpet, your windows, basically everything in the house. You can take a percentage of that and accelerate it in year one. And that's the cost segregation study allows you to take accelerated depreciation because you actually have to turn that study in. Like, you don't decide this. It's not an automatic number. You have to turn this study into your tax accountant. On a single family house, you're probably $1,000 to $2,000 on how much this cost segregation study costs. On a multi-million-dollar commercial property, it's going to be more expensive. On all the residential properties, small multifamily that we're talking about, $1,000 to $2,000. We certainly have recommendations for you that have that can give you quotes. That's the other thing. They give you estimates before you even buy a property. They can give you estimates on what you're likely to come in at. But for simple math, take 30% of the purchase price. That's this back of the napkin math, guys, that you can really kind of just assume. And then you actually get the study. Again, you don't have to have that study done before the end of the year. You don't have it done before you buy the property. You have it done after you buy the property. You just need it done prior to filing your taxes, because you give that to your accountant. And an engineer produces that. We have recommendations for cost seg engineers. And $1,000 to $2,000 cost that it costs to do the study on the property is also a tax deduction. All right, and cool. Thanks for putting the link to the inventory in there as well. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, Richard asks, how does personally manage a short-term rental work if we're not local? There's plenty of options out there for it. I mean, you can run everything and then have hire a cleaning service to go out there and do it, and they can give you a lot of insight as to what's going on. You're just going to be running things through, the Airbnb or VRBO or all of those websites. I mean, if you think about it, it's the exact same as running a short-term rental that's next door to you. You don't have to go there all the time, every single turn. You just have your cleaning crew go in there. If they see something that needs to be fixed, you call up, you can Angie list or, find,
Well, we actually have a quick
work there. And we have a quick start guide.
Yeah, we actually have a guide that says this is how you short-term manage, or this is how you manage a short-term rental property from a distance. It has all the links because really the two people you need are cleaning crews and
Maintenance.
Yeah, I guess maintenance, but it's been a long night, Adam. We have cleaning crews are the big thing, and then sure, yeah, some maintenance guys. You need to furnish the house, right? We have furnishing companies that will furnish and deliver and set up the house. Recommendations for those. We have recommendations where you can get the cleaning crew. It's not that hard. We have listing links to show how you list the property. Again, if you're only doing this for tax purposes, or that's a big motivation, it's just about going through the motions, getting it set up. It's not extremely time consuming. A lot of people think it's impossible to self-manage short-term rentals from a distance. It's simply not. Technology is a great thing. There's a lot of resources, and we have those for you to help you out. Still get a lot of questions about insurance costs. We covered those. And like, so yeah, Florida, we're heavily invested in Florida, but we're invested in many markets. In the Midwest, we have Ohio, Indiana, Missouri. In the Southeast, we do Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Carolinas. We showed only some of the markets we operate in. These are all landlord-friendly markets, have landlord-friendly legislation, low taxes. They have future population and economic growth. These are growing markets. Our average rental increase per year is 6%. That's double the national average. Some of these areas have seen double-digit appreciation numbers, even over the past couple of years, where interest rates have been high. So these are growth markets, guys. We identify the most strategic markets, and we bring all these to you to give you access to off-market deals at steeply discounted prices. Adam, you got some fans. Mike wants to connect with you. You can, that's up to you if you want to put in your info. Florida props. Okay, so yep, issues. And Craig saw yours about your specific situation. Guys, if you have specific questions to your situation, schedule a time with our team. So yes, most lenders will require you to have regular income, but we do have lenders that will do like DSCR loans and things where you don't actually have to have consistent employment. Waldo says, we should be able to buy those 5% construction with, or a minimum of 5% down. Oh, that's just comment. Thank you. Juliana, are these on your website? Yes, Adam put in the link.
Brian asked if we do our own property management or do we outsource the function. We find partner companies in the local market, boots on the ground, the people who are going to walk your property, help you out with all of that. So, Rent to Retirement doesn't own property management companies. We just find the best ones so that you can have a successful.
And you don't have to use them, right? That's up to you. If you want to, you can self-manage if you want, like a short-term rental. But they're there for you, and they're vetted.
And for long-term, estimate 8 to 10% on average.
Okay, Rocky, I think we've covered the short-term rental. Again, if you have additional questions on that or you want that short-term guide, reach out to our team. Robin, thanks for raising the hand, but we can't bring you up. You'll have to put your question in the Q&A box, please. Do we need a lender in the state that we're buying the property? Yes, you do need a lender that's licensed in the state, but we have lender recommendations for you. So we have lenders where you can put 20% down, 5% down. If you can't qualify for a conventional loan, we have non-conventional lenders. So you got to speak with our team and to understand your situation, to understand what is the best lender to use.
Yeah, you likely can't use your own lender, like the one who helped you buy your personal residence, because the likelihood that they're licensed in multiple states is very small. Because it's not worth it for them. You have to find somebody who specializes in investment loans and is willing to go out and get the license in so many states.
Robert says, got any fourplexes? We have some actually in San Antonio, I believe, right, Adam? There's some duplexes and fourplexes. So, and here's a little pro tip for you on the accelerated depreciation. With new construction properties, you get better depreciation than an older home or rehabbed house. Those studies always come in higher. Tim says, can you explain 30-year AM, 10-year term? So on this 5% down loan, remember, it's 5% down. You can buy up to 5 investment properties with this 5% down loan if you'd like. If you qualify for it, there's no prepayment penalty, so you can cash out, refinance, or sell the property without penalty. That's actually huge because that's rare. There's no private mortgage insurance. Normally with conventional loan, you put less than 20% down, you're paying mortgage insurance. There's no mortgage insurance. So this is really a unique loan structure. 30-year AM means if you look at an amortization scale, that's basically depending on how much your payment, that determines how much your payment is going to be each month and how much of that is principal and interest. That's an amortization scale. You can look up a scale online. So that means your payments are based on a 30-year, like a normal conventional loan, 30-year amortization, 30-year term. With this portfolio loan, it's a 30-year amortization, which is good. That means your payments are less. And it's a 10-year term, meaning that loan is due in 10 years, meaning you need to sell the property, do a refinance. The likelihood of you owning that property and having that loan for 10 years is very slim, though. You're more likely to refinance that property or sell that property within 10 years, like most of our investors do, because they have equity built up.
Yeah, Seth asked, does the cashback apply even when you don't use the 5% program? Absolutely. It applies for any loan product. It's not contingent on which lender you use. And Waldo asked, Canadians are able to pay 5% down or minimum of 20% down. Unfortunately, Canadians are not able to take advantage of the 5% down, but you can still you can still get regular loans through our lender, and you're still eligible for that, 5, 6, 10% rebate that you can get on the properties.
Good question. Colette asked, do the new construction homes allow for short-term rentals? Not all of them. And so that's a really good clarification. So if they have HOAs, not all of them, but many of them do. That's why you need to speak with your R2R rep. If you're trying to do the short-term loophole where you buy a bunch of properties, here's a strategy with this. And I don't know if I made this clear previously, guys, because we help investors do this all the time. If you cannot qualify as a real estate professional, meaning, you don't have a lot of real estate experience, you have a W-2 job, whatever the case, like most of your income and time is spent not involved in real estate, and you don't have a spouse that's part-time or stay at home that could qualify as real estate professional, because a lot of people do that. If you can't go that route, can't qualify as real estate professional through one of those routes, then more than likely you're going to need to do the short-term loophole if you want to take the accelerated depreciation this year. Quick caveat, if you earn $150,000 or less, like, you don't even have to be a real estate professional, right? You can still get up, as Amanda and Matt told us, you get up to $25,000 tax deduction this year just buying a property without being a real estate professional. I think you use a cost seg to maximize that, because I don't think you'd get there without it. But if you can't qualify as a real estate professional, the strategy is, even if you don't want to manage properties, the strategy is to buy a new construction property, furnish it, and we can help you through this. We have a guide to do this, but you have to be the one that's doing it, right? You have to self-manage it. You buy a new construction property, you furnish it, you get some rentals in there, and you operate it for the rest of this year. So since you did that this year, you bought it this year, you operate it as a short-term rental, there's no one else managing it, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a real estate professional. You can take accelerated depreciation, just self-managing it. And then next year, you can turn it over to property management. Next year doesn't matter what you do with it. A lot of people have found that, hey, I can actually short-term rent this property and it's not that difficult to self-manage it. Oh, and now I don't have to pay a management fee, right? I'm actually maximizing my returns on this property and it's not that time intensive. I kind of enjoy it. We've had a lot of people that have done that, have, just self-managed short-term rentals or midterm rentals. If you don't want to do that, turn it over to a short-term or midterm property manager, or turn it into a long-term rental. It doesn't matter what you do with it next year. You can make it completely passive next year, but buy it this year as a short-term rental. It's a new construction house. You put some furniture in it, which is also tax deduction, right? And you operate it. That allows you to get that huge tax benefit. You buy a $300,000 property, you can put 20% down to buy it, or you put 0% down to buy it, depending on what loan structure you use. You get money back at closing in either one of those scenarios. That could cover your furnishing costs. So you're still into the deal for zero money down. And you still have this big tax benefit because you furnished the house with money that we gave you back at closing. And then you get, upwards of a $90,000 or $100,000 tax deduction. At 60%, you get that $50,000 or $60,000 tax deduction year one with no money out of your pocket, buying an A-class new construction property that's going to appreciate over time. I mean, that's about as sweet as it gets. So, these are some of these strategies we help you employ over time. But again, you have to close on the property in 2024 if you want to do it this year. That means you need to set up a time with our team, and you need to get pre-approved and identify the property probably within the next 1 to 2 weeks at most to be able to close before the end of the year.
Yep. Yeah. Even 2 weeks from now you better not drop the ball on uploading your paperwork and, getting your inspection and appraisal and all of that done. So you're going to be cutting it tight.
So question on self-directed IRAs, we most certainly work with non-recourse lenders. And if you need non-recourse lenders, we also have some recommendations. So yes, you can set up, if you want to invest through an IRA or a 401k to like double dip on some of these tax benefits or maximize those, like we can absolutely, we don't care where the money comes from, what lending you use. We have definitely lending sources for you if you need those. Yeah, are these incentives available limited only? Yes, through the end of the month. These incentives, these 5 to 10, possibly 12% cash back at closing or price reduction options that we have, those are available through the end of the month. But it's probably, honestly, guys, it's inventory specific. So it's on a first come, first served basis. We take properties off of our website once people put them under contract and reserve them. That's a normal real estate process. So, you got to get a pre-approval with the lender. And you need to identify a property and put it under contract to reserve it. Once that inventory is gone, it's gone, right? So we say they're available through the end of the month. It's likely less than that because it's on a first come, first serve basis. And likely the properties that have the best numbers, the best ROI, the best cash flow will probably go first, right? So it's to your advantage if you're serious about this, if you're serious about getting started investing in real estate, if you're serious about maximizing your tax benefits before the end of the year, if you're serious about taking advantage of some of these incentives that will not last for long. I mean, it's not normal to get 10% back at closing. It's not normal to get up to $30,000 of cash back at closing. That's not normal in the real estate world. If you want to take advantage of that stuff, you have to move at an expeditious manner, right? And schedule your appointment.
As rates, just remember people, as rates come down and the retail buyers really come back, the builders are much less incentivized to, really kick in that 10, 8, 9, 10% to us. I mean, they've even told us, so like when rates come down, we don't know what we're going to be able to do. So, have fun, make hay while the sun is shining.
Yeah, it's a buying opportunity, and because there's a slight excess in inventory, that's all it is. And guess what? Like we said, Fed lowered rates today, and that's going to be a continual trend throughout 2025. So it's going to be a seller's market. That means there's going to be more competition in the market. That means prices are going to go up. You want to buy on the front end of that, right? Because then you're going to ride that appreciation wave. You don't want to buy as much. Well, I buy real estate all the time just for tax benefits, but you want to buy during. You don't want to buy during those times. You want to buy, if you're going to buy, you want to buy in the front of that where you get the best buying incentives, where you can have immediate equity or cash back at closing to make an exceptional investment. And then you don't have to compete with everyone else that enters a market that's been sitting on the sidelines, because as rates come down, all these buyers enter the market and it's a seller's market. There's competition. Prices go up. Properties become more competitive. So you want to be a strategic investor to invest now, not only for tax benefits to lock in your 60% bonus appreciation, but also just being strategic buying now before we move into a positive real estate market and positive economic market where rates are coming down. There's more people have confidence in the economy. There's more people buying. There's just more competition. So that's my recommendation for you.
Yeah, we've got, all the markets that we're in, values have creeped up. It hasn't been the COVID boom, but they've held and creeped up when rates are at, 7, 8, 8.5%. So, just think about it. If they can hold an increase at 7.5%, what are they going to do at 5%, 4.5%? Because that's where we were for years before COVID, in that 4.5 to 5.5 range.
We are never going to see those rates again. But here's the thing. If you have $30,000 as a 10% kickback on a $300,000 house, you can buy your rate down into the threes with a $30,000. Now you don't have to, but if you think about that, like if you're going to hold that loan for a long period of time, like I think taking the cash back at closing actually makes the most sense over anything else, or a combination where you buy the rate sum down to cash flow and then you get the majority back at closing. But you can actually literally buy your way down to rates into the threes. That is a way to get rates locked in for 30 years at a rate that we will likely never see again. I love Diane called her conventional loans her golden tickets. She says, my golden tickets are filled. Will the banks you work with provide DSCR loans on your properties with 5% down? That is a specific loan product that you have to qualify for. So it's a portfolio loan. The lender's holding house. If you can't qualify for those, we have other lenders that you can use.
Yep. There was a question in there about thanking me for the market stats. I wanted to know more. If you book an appointment and ask for some market data, I have created a packet for pretty much every market that we're in, and your rep can send you those, a link to those data packets, and you can read them all. So
Paul asks about, yes, so book a time and actually learn more about the markets and talk more about the strategy, the tech strategy. And, that's, you guys, that's the next step. If you want to take advantage of this stuff, the next step is to get in contact with our team, book an appointment on a link that Adam put in the chat box with our team, which he'll post again just now. And then we can help you. We actually will spend time with you individually to map out an investment plan. Paul is asking about, lenders and, do they understand, and, real estate investors and maximizing. Yeah, they get it. It's, the lenders we work with investors all the time, and they understand. Now there's criteria, right? There's lending criteria that you have to meet, and it's just going through the process. Whether it's conventional, a DSCR, portfolio lender, whatever the case is, non-recourse. Our lenders work with investors all the time. Yes, they're used to seeing you write off a ton of taxes. But if they can't qualify you, they can't qualify it. We have lenders that can qualify you in any type of scenario that you have, self-employed, whatever. Mike is asking about an S corp. I'm not sure in regards to what, but yeah, I mean, you can buy properties through your corporation. You can hold it in a corporation. There's lenders that will lend to those corporations, so it just depends on. Okay, Rocky says, heard this year is at 60% max. Do I have options to claim 40% next year? Like that's the scenario we were just talking about, Ricky, with the scenario where likely we're going to have 100% bonus depreciation brought back. And I know Amanda and Matt said it failed. Actually, I was speaking with our tax attorney today. From what I understand, it is the well, I'll tell you in a sec. I'll look it up, but the like American Tax Relief and Workers Act or whatever it is actually passed the House and sitting at the Senate right now, just stalled out, and that's my understanding. And so likely it will pass the Senate where it is put into place, and that specific bill actually backdates. It brings 100% bonus depreciation. Backdates to 2022, so from 23 to 2026 is where you have bonus depreciation. And specifically how that bill is outlined is if they're not going to retroactively go back and give you money back, but the bonus depreciation that you didn't take this year, because you're only allowed to take 60%, you can take at future years when that is allowed. So that means if this year you're at 60% and that passes, which I have full confidence it will, it's a bipartisan bill regardless, but it's, since the Senate is now mainly
Senate hasn't done anything for years, so them not signing a bill is not surprising.
Right, but now that there's a majority Republican, again, this isn't a political statement, but being a mainly Republican beneficial bill, it will likely be pushed through, because the 2017 Tax Act, all the things we're talking about today, was heavily promoted with the 2017 Tax Act that Trump really spearheaded. But so we're likely to see that pass. We have extreme confidence that'll be passed. That means if you take 60% this year, likely you can take your 40% that you did not take next year or in future years.
Ricky also said, how do you get occupancy rates for any city? My recommendation, reach out to the property manager. I mean, we're happy to introduce you to our property managers and just say, hey, how long do your tenants stay? What's your average vacancy? And they can give you that, because even if you look it up online, it's way better to just call up a property manager and ask them those directly.
Cool. So Marva wants to know about IRAs and trusts. Yeah, I'm not sure in regards to what. Again, you can put properties into trusts. You can buy with trusts. You can buy with an IRA. There may be specific. You can invest in real estate through IRA. There may be specific lending options and things you have to do with that, but those are all options.
Mike asked if all RTR reps are as experienced and knowledgeable as me. The answer is all of the reps. Well, I mean, obviously I'm the best, but all of them have experience in the real estate industry. They've been in here for years. They're not just random people we pulled in off the sidewalk. So they all have real estate backgrounds and are in it. And Paul asks, is the 6 to 10% price reduction incentive option available for cash buyers? 100%. That would be my biggest recommendation for cash buyers, to knock the price down.
Yeah, that's significant, right? That gives you that immediate equity position. So if and when you want to put a loan on the property after the fact, you can likely be, depending on when you do that refi, that's another way to possibly be little to no money down on a property. William, and we missed this one early on, William, so I apologize. I believe you're referring to if you make $150,000 or less, anybody can take up to a $25,000 deduction on your active income. Again, at $100,000, according to Amanda and Matt, you can take a full $25,000 deduction. So that means, guys, if you're making $100,000 a year, that's the best, most impactful. That's more than you can put into an IRA, right? That's the most impactful thing you can do is just buy a rental property and do a cost segregation so you can offset, so you can have an immediate $25,000 tax deduction. That's huge. And that reduces, how taxes are in the brackets is that it reduces your taxable liability. So it reduces the tax liability in the top most taxed amount, because you're in that bracket where now it knocks you down to a lower bracket. So the best thing you can do, if you make between $100,000 to $150,000, the best thing you can do, and we're not talking about real estate professional status, short-term loophole, the best thing you can do is buy an investment property, run a cost segregation to get your accelerated depreciation, and take that $25,000 tax deduction. That's a no-brainer, right? When I heard about this, it's like, what? That's anyone, if you're in that range, $150,000 or less in income, that's dramatically impactful. That's a $25,000 tax deduction. Again, it phases out, I think, 100 to 150, but
Yeah. You gotta go in and ask for $100 pay decrease so that you can be under 100,000, and then take the $25,000 benefit, so you don't start getting phased out. Right? Isn't that how it works?
There you go. So meaning qualified money is okay. Adam, help me out here because I know we're running long.
Yep. Seth asks, are all the properties on the website and markets that you recommend? Absolutely. You wouldn't even believe how many markets we go through that we say no to, that we look at and like wrong state, wrong city, wrong rents.
These people are building across the country, right? These are national builders that build across the country. So award-winning builders like Toll Brothers and Lennar, DR Horton. These are award-winning builders building all across the country. We have access to all their inventory. We get a cherry pick the ones that have the best, are in the best markets, right? Because we run the analysis. This is the value that our team brings. We are able to run the analysis on the best markets to invest in from all these perspectives that actually have cash flow, that have favorable tax structures and legislation. And then we're able to come in and offer those at steep discounts at a wholesale pricing, like a institutional buyer like Blackstone would be able to access, because they're buying hundreds of houses at once. But our community is doing the same thing. So we're able to take those institutional type of wholesale discounts and pass those on to you as the investor, or we've already done the research to understand where the best markets are and where the cash flow makes sense. And so that's our value add, and to help you build a strategy. And then we do the same thing with lenders. We have the best lending structures across the country to bring you creative loan structures like this loan option where you can put 5% down on up to 5 investment properties. So it's putting all these things into place to make a combination of a strategy that makes sense for you guys to accomplish your goals.
Yeah, and inside every market, there are even more models than we have. So there are a lot of models inside each market where I'm like, well, the numbers don't work on that one, or it just doesn't work. And Ryan, you asked if these are the best markets, why huge discounts? And the fact of the matter is, what's the time frame? All of our time frames are we ask our property managers for 30 to 45 days for rental. That's the rent that we put on it is based on how they can tenant it in 30 to 45 days, so that you have a tenant in place by the time your first mortgage payment is due. That is always our goal. And Zach and I did a podcast about this. Why are they offering discounts? Because thankfully the retail market has slowed down because of higher interest rates. And as interest rates come down, they're going to go away. So, this quality inventory in the quality market, just because people are moving there, things are great, doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's buying right now. So they want to get them off their books before they have to refinance them, or by the end of the year, because they've got bonuses coming up. There's a lot of incentives for them to move them off their books that come into play.
Yeah. So again, that's a timing thing. That's not always going to be the case. Aaron, I see this what I missed early on, so apologize, but I see your information about flipping land, and in my opinion, you probably would qualify as RE Pro. And can I buy turnkey properties to offset my business income? Like, absolutely, right? That's the whole key. If you're a W-2 earner, if you're an active real estate investor, if you own your own business, whatever the case is, if you're earning money at all and you have taxes to pay on that money, which we all inevitably do, then there is a way for any one of you, if you can buy the real estate, you can use the tax benefits, you can use the depreciation. It just might have to be a different strategy for different people based on their different scenarios. But let me say this again. If you pay taxes and you're able to buy real estate, you can use the tax benefits to your advantage And some of you can use the accelerated depreciation things that we talked about. I would argue that all of you can, if you're willing to do some things like the short-term loophole, or if you're under that $150,000, literally everyone can use that. Like, you can use real estate to make big, impactful things to save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Guys, hopefully this webinar has been beneficial for all of you. I hope the information we presented at least have got the wheels turning, but you have to take action. Ultimately, we can provide you all the information that we want and can and love to do, but it's you at the end of the day that wants to decide if you want to take action on these things. But again, lowering your taxes is the biggest way to give yourself an immediate raise. If you're someone who's seeking to increase your net worth, to increase your passive income, to create generational wealth, to just be a more sophisticated and savvy investor, you need to be conscious about these tax things, and you need to apply these, because that is the best way for you to scale. Money is the most limiting factor for everybody to scale their portfolio over time. You need to scale your real estate to achieve financial independence or early retirement. You just do. No one can retire off of just one rental property. It's very unlikely. And so if you're able to use some of these tax benefits to decrease the money that you pay in taxes and have more tangible cash that you can reinvest, along with combining it with some of these loan structures where you can put less money down, this is a recipe to success, guys. We're literally laying out the path that you need to follow to be financially independent through real estate investing. But you got to take the steps. And now's a crucial time, because these incentives are on limited inventory. That's first come, first serve. We know that they're going to likely be gone after November. And you need to take action now to get pre-qualified with our lenders and put properties under contract to be able to close them before the end of the year. Everything we talked about, you got to close it before the end of the year if you want it to affect your 2024 taxes. Adam has a lot of family in town. Adam, you can jump off if you want. I'll stay a few minutes later. It's up to you.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate it. I got family here, and I'm starting to get hungry, people.
Actually, you're running the ship on it, right? So let's do 3 more questions, Adam, and then we'll jump out of here. So, and guys, again, book an appointment. Adam put the link in the chat box. Book an appointment with our team, because I know we didn't get through all the questions today. We want to take the time with you. You schedule a free consultation with our team. We don't charge investors anything, right? We make our money through building and selling houses. That's our core business. We don't charge you anything. We're able to spend as much time as you need to help you map out an individual strategy and plan. But you got to book an appointment. That's the next step.
I'll say we have answered almost 140 questions, so we're working through it, people.
Yeah, we have property managers that do short-term and long-term, or you can self-manage. We have multifamily. Okay, guys, I think I got to let Adam go. I know we have a lot, but thank you guys so much. Oh, Mike, our name of our podcast is Rent to Retirement. Yep, our company, Rent to Retirement. That's rent2retirement.com, rent-to-retirement.com. Adam, why don't you also put in the chat box also you can text REI to 33777 as well. Some people I know are listening to this in audio and maybe not in front of a computer. So again, you can text REI to 33777 to connect with our team to set up an appointment that will at least get you on our email list, and then it will send you a link to schedule with us. If you're listening to in the car, you can text REI to 33777. Toyin, last question. What is the turnaround for creating LLC in a property in the States? It's very quick. I'll say, because I saw a few other LLC questions. LLCs don't matter right now. Don't think about them. If you're a foreign national and you need to set one up to qualify for a loan, that's a different story. Our team can help you with that. The rest of you, don't worry about LLC right now. It makes no difference on the tax side. You got to own the property in your own name. Guys, thanks so much. Have a great evening, and save a ton in taxes in 2024 through buying excellent real estate.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.